Thank you for listening to Scandinavian Crimes Podcast. Be sure to check out the episode links and be part of our other social media platforms where you can leave a topic suggestion or even share some of your insights regarding the subject matter of the episode. We will always do our best to provide a well-researched episode, but sometimes due to limited access to information and translation issues, some information can be lost. It is therefore good to do your own research and get a deeper understanding of a case of your own interest. So with that all said, let us start today's episode.
Welcome to Scandinavian Crimes. My name is Devante, and I would love for you guys to say hello to my co-host, Delila.
Hi, everyone.
And on this podcast, we will cover famous Scandinavian criminals who made their mark throughout Scandinavian history. While I'm pretty sure you guys know the United States is considered the serial killer / crime capital of the world, there are little known serial killers and criminals across the globe. While some of these names may be familiar to you, some of them may not be, a lot of these killers on this list terrified a lot of people in their home countries with their various reigns of terror, some more terrifying than others. Even though we're only on the second episode, one thing I will say is that quickly over the podcast, you'll kind of see a theme with a lot of these serial killers that, were notorious in the Nordic Scandinavian area, as we kind of continue with these series of killers. Many of these serial killers seem to display traits that are very indicative of their true desire of control rather than being an agent of chaos. Now, obviously, this does not mean every serial killer follows the same blueprint, but a lot of them had very similar circumstances. So let's get into today's topic, and that is Arnfinn Nesset. Arnfinn Nesset is one of the most notorious serial killers in Norway's history. The reason he was deemed as such was because he targeted people in nursing homes. Now, forgive me, I am an American, so anything that is not English, I promise you I will butcher it. So, he was born in Trenglet.
Sorry. It's okay.
I gotta let people know I'm gonna butcher it. Arnfinn was born in Trøndelag in 1936 out of wedlock. Nessett was raised by his mother and remained with her throughout his childhood all the way into his adulthood while still in his childhood home. His father was very much absent from his life and never really established contact with him. He was educated and also registered as a nurse, and by 1977 had been hired as a head nurse at a larger nursing home in Orkdal, Trøndelag. During the summer of the autumn...
Trøndelag.
See, I don't see. It's just,
it's okay.
It's
okay.
easier. It's easier.
I don't know in Norwegian either. It was
During the summer and autumn of 1981, a series of suspicious deaths were uncovered at the nursing home in Orkdal, in which Nessett was the manager for. Now, when questioned by police, Nessett initially confessed to the murder of 27 patients whom he claimed to have killed, injecting them with saxathonium chloride. Now, it's a drug that paralyzes your muscles, so it's pretty much like, if you take too much muscle relaxer, your heart will eventually stop. At least initially, that's what we thought he was using, by itself. But he was charged with 25 counts of homicide, but later retracted his confession and denied all charges for the rest of his 5-month trial. Now, what's interesting about this is that he was working in a nursing home, and at least based on the information we saw online, it seemed like he was relatively inactive for a good chunk of his career, and it was maybe about 4 years before these killings even went into full effect. Now, it's entirely possible that information can be inaccurate because as time goes along, information can be lost. So don't hold us accountable for that. We're just only presenting information as we find it. But what also raises a big flag outside of the killings themselves is it seems like a good chunk of his killings from the research we found did take place within the year of 1981 itself, but I would assume naturally it probably was within the 12 to maybe 16-month range. Nessett was convicted in March 1983 of poisoning 22 patients in a nursing home in Norwegian village of Orkdal. During the trial, it was found out that Nessett poisoned patients with both injections of saxathonium chloride and another drug called curacit to sedate and kill his victims. While he stole some money from the victims, there was never any clear motivation as to why he actually killed any of them. Now, it was rumored because, like I said, in the first section of this paragraph, he was basically convicted of poisoning 22 people, but Nessett may have killed upwards of 138 of his patients. And a lot of people probably might wonder, how can he have killed so many people? He works in a nursing home, so the average age of his victims ranged from 67 to 94. So physically, these people were unable to fight back, and unfortunately as well, these are people that trusted him because that was his job. Now, during the marathon trial, which lasted 5 months from October 1982 to March 18th the following year, 128 witnesses and 9 experts were called. A few experts claim that because he was born out of wedlock and never had a relationship with his father, his actions were very indicative of desiring control over his life. He was sentenced to 21 years in prison, the maximum term then available under Norwegian law, also to be followed by 10 years of preventative detention. However, he was released after serving 12 years of his sentence for good behavior, and outside of jail, he spent 10 years being supervised. He is now reported to be living in an undisclosed location as well. After his release, he changed his name and lived out the rest of his life, at least as far as we know, alone. Now, even though as of 2022, his age should be around 86, which means there's a decent chance he can actually still be alive, it could be someone you know. He can be a next door neighbor, that grandfather who has a little secret closet in his attic, or maybe his time on Earth passed already. And that is the story of Arnfinn Nesset.
That is so chilling. Like, I feel so, I don't know. That was interesting. And I think also the most chilling about all of this is that the fact that he kind of didn't really have a motive. Mm-hmm. And also that he might be alive, ironically enough, in a nursing home and might be treated by someone, like, I don't know. It's just this is a very interesting case or crime. But I don't know. What do you think about this whole thing?
I just think like there's always seems to be, at least so far, I see a lot of connection, and I think it could be just the ignorance of the time where they felt like if you're a child out of wedlock, naturally you're going to be a serial killer, or you're going to be crazy, or like you're more likely to just be this difficult person or have a difficult life. And because even between the first episode and this episode, they seem to always kind of be making the same arguments for all these kids. Now, don't get me wrong, I see a pattern, and obviously we only did 2 so far up until this point. But if by some chance, the next one that we do, and they're like, yeah, it's because he's born out of wedlock, then it seems a little odd that that's their go-to. But then it's just letting me know, like, times have changed a lot. Because, just because someone's born out of wedlock doesn't by default make them a bad person, doesn't make the circumstances, turn them into Ted Bundy per se, but it just makes, some of their, choices probably a little different or a little more difficult as well. But, I do see like this consistent, I'm feeling like this is going to be a thing that's going to keep popping up, especially we're talking about like people born in like the 30s and 40s and 50s. Even I wouldn't be surprised if we saw stuff like this, going into the 60s and 70s as well. So, that's my opinion about it.
Yeah, because I also found it very interesting that they kind of kept going into that trail of him having an absent father, and he's a very ambitious man, and like, it sounded to me that they were trying to make the excuse that his absent father might have triggered him to do all these things. And I mean, it might be true, but I think it's a very far reach somehow. I would have loved to know how he was as a kid, if he had any tendencies of like having some kind of murderous tendencies in that case. For example, we see that some children who have a tendency of killing animals or when they're younger, they might be able to have those kind of murderous tendencies later on in life as well. And in that case, like...
That's okay. Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
No, it's okay.
I think too, like sometimes I feel less people are actually like sociopaths and, you know, psychopaths. And I say that in air quotes and stuff like that. I think less people are like that. And more people are just products of their environment. We don't have a ton of information about him, so I can definitely agree, you know, in terms of like, was he like this as a child? But if they're going to have the argument that, okay, his dad wasn't involved in his life, and remember, he was born in 1936, and so living environments were still not up to par. You know, even by the time we get to like the 1950s, living conditions were drastically different. Even from those, you know, difference in like maybe like 15, 20 years. So I think it's more of a product of his environment, where maybe he wasn't a sociopath, maybe he can empathize, but just something, he had a tough life and there was something that he felt that was missing. Who knows, it could have been his dad, but I don't think, at least from what I'm seeing, it just seems like he, you know, he wasn't like crazy.
Yeah, like I know that
he confessed.
Yeah, I know but he also, after that, he backed away. He was like, "Oh no,
he did, yeah."
Yeah, so it's like, anyways, like I just thought that it would be interesting to also know that, because that would be a huge clue in understanding why and how, because they couldn't really find a motive. I also think a lot that the environment can change someone drastically. Mm-hmm. Also, not having a father during those times can also be very drastic change for him as a boy.
Especially, yeah, because he was with his mom. And a factor, I think, too, is, remember, this is 1936. So, you know, this is before, like, women had the ability to, like, be seen as equals. She still couldn't even have a bank account, and, you know, work must have been like tough. So I know for a fact that they probably struggled for a while, you know,
and him wanting to be in control and having like control of the I can see that might have triggered and started this cascade of you know, going into or towards that direction of being ambitious and always trying his best, because his mother was always part of his life, for like the majority of his childhood and adulthood as well. So yeah, I think that definitely it could be also a factor. I just wanted to have like more information, because I know back then people just go with the easy way of explaining it. And I think that most of the days today, they actually do more research and everything when they do an evaluation and everything as well. But yeah, like I think this case is interesting. And I also think it's interesting to discuss these things with limited information, because then you can just like try to like understand the time period and like discuss all these things as well.
Yeah, we have to use our imaginations, because if you already know all the details, all the outcome, there's like really no mystery behind it. There's no figuring it out. Like, we already kind of know what happened and all that stuff. So yeah, I like using my imagination. I guess the biggest question I have, or I would ask you, is how do you think his mother felt? Like, can you imagine, like, you know, all this time they had a tight well, I don't know how their relationship was, but you know, she was involved in his life this entire time.
Yeah, like,
right. I'm assuming that they were cool with each other, because he stayed in the house with her when he didn't have to. He obviously had an education. He became a nurse. He could have left, but he didn't. So he's cool with his mom. And then how do you think his mom felt that my baby, my son, killed, like, officially he was charged of killing 22 people, but he may have killed 138 of his patients. That's a possibility. And it's hard to tell too, because because back then, like I said, he's dealing with people who are like 67 to 94. So it's hard to tell if they died of natural causes, or he just was like, I'm going to give you some muscle relaxer and then you're going to wake up dead. So
that's also something okay, if I'm going to ask you a question as a mother, I would I'm not really a mother, but like if I was a mother who had a child who did all these things, I don't even know how I would feel. Like the feelings would be intense probably. I would be sad. I would be blaming myself, what I did wrong, what I could have done to hinder this. There's so many things. I would probably be devastated, and also have that you're the mother of a murderer title. Like, because you will, like, a killer or a murderer will affect the whole family. So the whole family will be part of this, even though that they had no saying or any choice in the matter. But back then they didn't have internet or stuff like that, so probably the rumors would only go as high as that part of the neighborhood. If not, journalism would like do a countrywide thing.
Yeah, because the trial, what year was the trial again? He was convicted in 1983. So there was house phones, there was newspapers. It's the 80s. So
oh wait, I forgot. He was born during.
He was born in 36.
Early, but like they had stuff. Yeah, they had stuff. They had phones.
Yeah, I think like the first official like cell phone is like only a few years away at this point. But they did have telephones, so this wasn't a newspaper. I did see a clipping of it.
And journalism was a thing, so like forever. So yeah, like it could have been spread. But as I was born in Sweden. I have never heard of this ever. And I don't know like if Norwegians know about this. They probably should know about this, but I don't really know. Like, I haven't heard of it, so.
Especially because, remember, like, according to the timing, he should be about 86 now.
That's scary as hell.
Which means, look, I'm from the U.S., so our president is ancient as hell, to be honest with you. So it's entirely possible he can be someone's next door neighbor, and then no one would know, because he left. We assumed that he just went to live by himself. He did change his name supposedly, but they didn't disclose what his name was, and then he just went off and lived his life. So after killing possibly 128 people, but being confirmed to have killed 22, he still got to leave and live his life, and he could be someone's neighbor right now. He can be on a train in Norway right now.
He could, which is scary.
It's so crazy.
But like, I was thinking about that he killed so many people, or we assume that he did kill 138. I think it was. He just said that he was. Yeah. So he basically, like, what I found was interesting that he did it 4 years after he was hired as a nurse. And all of a sudden, he decided to kill within like a period of like 6 months or something, like during a summer period of time. What we know of, and he just all of a sudden decided to kill or murder these people with muscle relaxing, and also stole their money. To me, it sounds like something triggered him to do it. Based on the information that we have, like, sure, he might have environmental factors that could change him, but also like he was smart. He was a nurse. He was educated, they said. So for him to all of a sudden just kill so many people, to me, it sounds like either something triggered him. It could be basically anything, or he like maybe the elderly people who were living there was suffering in any way, and he just wanted to let them live a happy life, or what, like die happily or something. I don't know. Like, to me, it just seems so odd that all of a sudden he just kills so many people 4 years after, out of the blue, no history of any intent at all, and then also gets sentenced lifetime, but be freed 12 years after because of good behavior.
Good behavior.
Yeah.
Right. After being confirmed killed double-digit people, but then speculated to have killed triple digits. Like, that would never happen. I'm lying. It would happen over here in the U.S. because they would have to be, it's going to get a little political, but he would have to be white, essentially, for him to for that to transpire in that way. Usually, though, in most of mass killer, they're not getting out.
I can also say in Scandinavia, mostly the sentences here is a lot lighter. Even though if you killed or murdered someone, you will have life sentence, but like in Sweden, I think the top one would be like 20 years or something. I'm not fully into it, but like
that is so crazy to me.
It's very little.
You can literally be like on the train with someone who just killed someone, 20 years ago. Like, let's say they were 20, they killed someone. They can be out by 40 and still have 40 more years of life. And 40 is like a 40-year-old man, especially. That's still pretty young. You can still haul bodies at 40 years old.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
that's
oftentimes,
terrifying.
Some of them can get out of due to good behavior as well, and they also have the right to change their names and everything. So, like, it's. But also, many have actually questioned and put criticism on how low or how weak the sentences are for certain acts, but I guess it also, like, I'm not totally into how it is in Norway or Finland or Denmark or Iceland. I don't really know how it is there. I can only say for how it is here. But also, if we're going to compare to something that actually happened in the 80s, it's not too far away of like today.
Yeah. I guess I would say this, and this is a food for thought for the audience, I guess, to leave it off on this note. And you can think about this and send it to us and let me know what you guys think. Now, being an American, our criminal justice system is still lacking. We have a very high recidivism rate. People come out, recommit crimes, and go back into prison. So who am I to say that, on paper it sounds crazy, but, if he never committed a crime again, doesn't that mean the system worked? We've never heard of him coming out of hiding and killing more people. It's like he vanished, blended into society, and got himself together. So can we say that the system worked maybe? And then that's a possibility. I think so, because Norway and, Sweden and, like I said, in general, the Scandinavian area has a better crime rate than the US. So the question I would pose to the audience is, do you think it's okay that he was able to leave early due to good behavior despite the information you learned today? Or do you feel like he should have stayed in jail for at least 20 more years? Let us know. And I hope you enjoyed the podcast today. Myself and my lovely, gorgeous co-host, Delila. Go ahead, talk to the crowd. Tell them.
Thank you for listening, everyone. And I hope you have a wonderful day or night or evening or whatever time it is. And farewell, I guess.
And don't forget to have you a slice of bacon today.
Exactly.
And have a great day.